sports can never be equal. You are different, I'm different. You made an example about Michael Phelps, you look at Usain Bolt, you look at LeBron James, even in WNBA. Have you seen how those tall girls are? You know, they're very tall, they're big, they dunk. So what you gonna do about it? There's nothing you can do about it. Genetically, there's nothing you can do about it. You cannot control nature.
You've certainly brilliantly articulated all the ways in which you've been undermined as a woman, but how much of it do you think is also because you are a black woman and the intersection of those factors and how Western institutions in particular tend to masculinize black women?
Yeah, of course, for me, nice question. I like it because I never wanted to get to that point to say, personally, how I take it, if you look into this regulation, it is targeted, few nations. You look into all athletes that are affected are from Africa and Asia, you understand? Of course, for me, personally, I would say it's more racial, but in a way, it comes also with us, our African leaders are the ones who are failing us, because I went face, the president of CAA to ask him, what do you think about this regulation? His answer to me was like, there's nothing I can say about it, you understand? And it gives these leaders this side the power, to continue on discriminating and torturing us, where I would say it's more racial, because if it only affects an Indian girl or a girl from Indonesia and a girl from Philippines, it does not affect Europeans, it does not affect Americans. I would say yes, it's a big blow for young African women. And for me, that's why I say, for me, I start the movement to say, look, I'm gonna face this, I'm gonna challenge, these African leaders to say, look, if you don't fight, I'll fight for these girls. But obviously, for me, it came with the sacrifice where I have to sacrifice myself and my career for others. So it's really a big blow. And if you can imagine how those young girls go through, it's hard. It's hard for them to live, because some of them, they just started, their career now. They've been, living through it. It was their source of income. And when you ask them, it's bad. And their own presidents in the federation, they're not doing anything about it. I would say, of course, it's a racial issue.
Right, who's next? Let's take the member in the front bench right there.
I've read the cases all the way through to the ECHR, and something that the judges discuss over and over again is the concept of fair play in sport. And they say that the difference in your testosterone levels make it unfair for the other women in the category. So how do you understand sport, where there is this underlying assumption that people who are of equal abilities can race or can compete to win a big prize at the end of it? But clearly we are not of all equal abilities, and Michael Phelps is also an example of that given his body ratios. So how do you think sport should be understood, but at the same time its integrity, for being a place of equal competition, can be kept alive?
For me, to answer that, it's very simple, because first of all, sports can never be fair because we all have our genetics. And second of all, there's no really the study that shows that women with differences, especially with high testosterone, have an advantage, in competition. Number one, they say women with, testosterone are born a man. But you look at the times that all women that we run with differences run, they are not even close to that world record they're talking about. If it played a role, for an example, I'll give you an example, that's me. Why can I run 10.5? on 100 meters. Why can I run all this time close to them? 3:26. My time is 1:54. All these young girls are running 1:54. So for me, they've been misleading, the world. And when we talk about equality, especially in terms of leveling the sports, you can never level anything in sports because people differ. We all have our variation. We all have different bodies. So for me, I'll say it does not really make sense. Whoever came with the study to say you need to level the sports, you gotta be nuts in your head. You're not normal because sports can never be equal. You are different, I'm different. You made an example about Michael Phelps, you look at Usain Bolt, you look at LeBron James. Even in WNBA, have you seen how those tall girls are? They're very tall, they're big, they dunk. So what you gonna do about it? There's nothing you can do about it. Genetically, there's nothing you can do about it. You cannot control nature. So it has to get into their sense. And that's why when you look at the High Court, they've decided, look, it is discriminatory. They should consider, human rights. And I'm happy about that. Even if the Swiss appeal, it don't make any difference because at the end of the day, the case is still on. We're still gonna fight that. The main thing is for us to make sure that all this ruling has been scrapped out because we can't deal with this thing. Sports can never be fair. If sports was fair, you were never gonna see anyone extraordinary.
Right, let's go with the member in the second row, right there.
As a woman who might very well be in a leadership position soon, I hope, do you think it's important to define what a woman is to be eligible to compete in women's sports? And what do you think that definition should be? Do you think it should be if you were raised as a woman, if you identify as a woman, do you think there should be a medical definition? And on that note, do you think the issue of women with disorders of sexual differentiation is the same issue of trans women in sports, or do you think it's a separate matter?
Oh, nice. Thank you for that question. I think women are women, should be considered women, because you're not going to, differentiate or categorize women. That would be unfair, because if you're born a woman, you're born a woman. It does not matter what differences you have. They may call it DSD, intersex, this. At the end of the day, if you're a woman, you're a woman. For me, if I regulate sports, I'll say women are women. And then the difference with trans, if I may say, if I understand, that's a different situation where, for me, I have no idea at this moment how they're going to deal with it as they govern. But for me, I don't have a problem with anyone. As long as you have a body, you compete. I do not discriminate against anyone. I'm not the one who decides who you should look like. If you believe you're a woman, if you believe you're a man, fine by me. At the end of the day, it does not affect anything in the sports. Remember, sports is entertainment. Sports is not meant to discriminate or to categorize. If we're going to make rules, we make rules based on human. We're not going to make rules based on you are transgender, you are intersex, you are woman, then you're going to have a lot of categories. So if we're going to do sports, let people do sports, let people enjoy themselves, let people entertain. For me, if I were to regulate, I will not even get to that extent, because the minute you start questioning who should look like, who should be in this category, then that's where you're dropping, the sports. That's where you're killing the sports. For me, I'll say sports for all.
Right, so we have time for two more. So who's eager? Okay. Let's take the gentleman in the third row right there.
I believe, I might be wrong, but you were offered the opportunity to compete in men's categories by the international athletics body. I was wondering, is the reason you almost denied that opportunity because you value your identity as a woman more strongly than you do to compete without the hurdles of discrimination or the drugs you had to take?
But that's not an opportunity, it's a disrespect. Because you can't say a woman should compete in a men's category. That's for me, that's how far I can go about it, because I'll just say it's a disrespect to a level where if you're going to go personal, come direct to me. You know, in Africa we say, don't go through the corners, don't cut through the corners. Come straight to me, you understand? If you're really going to disrespect me to that level, make face to face. Don't go around and going through media, hiding behind the mic, you know, hiding behind the paper. No. If you say, hey, Caster, I don't want you, and I've always said it. If you don't want someone, you just say straight, say, I don't want you, rather than insulting someone to that extent to say, if you're not going to take a medication, go run as a man. How am I going to run as a man if I'm not a man? You get what I'm saying? So I think for me, it's a true reflection of how some leaders portray themselves, how they want us to see them. They want us to feel them, to say, hey, I'm in charge. Unfortunately, in sports, you're here to serve athletes. You're here to act in the best interest of athletes, not to categorize them, not to discriminate, not to segregate and all, you know, do all those things. For me, I'll say it's an insult. It's not an opportunity. No.
So we have time for one more. Let's take, it's only one hand anyway. You in the back.
In South Africa in the past few years, we've been going through a lot of tough times and a lot of trouble and a lot of division. But as a country, we have a habit of uniting and rallying around our sports heroes and icons such as you and the Springboks. What role do you think sports can play in uniting the country in the future and hopefully help solve some of its divisions?
Sports, of course, sports unite people, but it speaks, I'll quote, you know, the late Nelson Mandela. It speaks to the youth with the language that they understand. Sports, of course, it unites people. It makes us feel like we won. And it plays a very, very big, you know, role and an impact, because remember those young girls and young boys look up to us. It builds the society. It takes them from the streets into the grounds. It alleviates them from drug, abuse, teenage pregnancy, alcohol abuse. I will say, of course, it plays a big role, and that's why we have a lot of programs, in the country where we make sure that we create opportunities for these kids so they can be in the best schools. They get good training, residential programs. What I can say is that sports is doing well. It is shaping up our future, and we are where we're supposed to be, as a nation. I'm coming from a nation where, we're great in cricket, we're great, in football, we're great, in rugby. Oh, we just won back-to-back, We're great in athletics. I will say sports, of course, it plays a vital role in our society, and it keeps on doing that. We're getting better and better.
Great. Well, that's all we have time for. Caster, thank you so much for coming.
Thank you.